boys, we're about to head down to Pecky's to finally put Nick's car on the dyno and see what this big G30 is going to make. Before we get going though, we thought there's a lot of people from the channel that don't know the history of this engine and what we've actually put in there. So we thought it's probably a good idea to give you guys a bit of a story tale and tell you exactly what's what's in this engine. So when Nick first bought this over and he had the CT9 in there, did it blow up with that or the TD05?
No, the TD05. It blew up the TD05. We just put the Microtech in on the stock motor and it went for like a few days and it just rotted on, I think cylinder 3 rotted.
Completely destroyed it. And Nick said to me, oh man, I'd love a build engine, like a forged engine. And as a joke, I was going through some of my old parts, and when I originally got the GT, it actually had forged wide scope pistons and had the scat rods in there. Let's get some sandpaper out and clean the pistons up. So we got some sandpaper, cleaned up the pistons. The rings are actually seized in the pistons, and I had to soak them in diesel for a couple of days and then get a center punch and whatever other miscellaneous tools to hit them out. But we got the rings out, put those aside and thought we'll get some new rings later. The rods for some reason look like they've been sitting in water, and they actually had pitting marks and rust marks on them, and not to mention one of the rods that actually spun a bearing, one of the rod bearings that actually spun as well. So we took the set of rod bearings out, threw them in the bin. We went through a bucket of old bearings I had and just picked all the 4E ones
that looked the best.
And started to assemble the engine.
Remember the pistons though, they all had, every single one had cracks on the side skirts. They had scoring up them. Some of them had dents in them from when you were bashing them out of the cylinders.
Oh yeah.
They had.
So one of them was stuck in the bore because it was rusted, so I actually had to flick the block upside down, and I just had a metal bar, didn't know they were forged at this point, and just got a hammer and bashed on them and actually pushed the pistons out of the bore. So we had just a stock 4E block. We had it up on the engine stand. We didn't have any rings, so I had another set of Wiseco pistons that were actually a bit larger. They were the 74.5mm pistons, I think, and I had an old set of rings. We went to put those in Nick's bores, and of course with a 74mm bore, the rings didn't fit. And we thought, this is just getting dodgy by the day. So we just got the angle grinder out, and I shit you not, we just ground them down by eye, and we didn't measure the ring gaps. Sat them in the bore, just closed one eye, yeah, okay, that looks pretty good. We assembled them on the 74mm pistons. They fit in the original bore pretty good. We used the rusty rods and a handful of these miscellaneous bearings that we had.
We used the crank out of the blown motor.
And the crank out of the blown motor. So we put it all together, started it up. The engine was smoky as shit, and we thought, oh, maybe the rings just got a bit in, because we didn't hone the bore or do absolutely anything. So I sent Nick off down the road. The car's just blowing smoke out, and we thought, oh, it'll come good. How much oil did it use in that
like half a litre or something?
1 or 2 days?
It used a lot of oil.
Yeah, it used a shitload of oil. So I had another set of second-hand rings. We pulled the head off, pulled the sump back off. We'd realised what we'd done wrong. So the top and second ring gaps were okay, but the oiling rings, that one that looks like a spring, we'd cut that way too short. And what that does is that's meant to push the oiling rings up against the bore to help the oil.
So we thought we were meant to give it a ring gap, but you're not. It's meant to butt together.
Yeah.
And it's meant to like force itself onto the cylinder wall
and actually push it up against the bore.
So
yeah. We put another set of second-hand oiling rings in there, put it all back together, put the head back on it, reused the head gasket again, fired it up, stock head bolts, and it was mint. Went on the dyno, made about 300 horsepower on the nitrous, and that's the TD05 setup. That's now on Connor's car in those previous episodes. And it went sick, it went good. As we started to try and turn the boost up and try and chase more power, the head gasket inevitably let go.
I reckon it stretched the head bolts.
Stretch the head bolts. So the next step then was putting the ARP head stud kit in there, the 2mm oversized one. We didn't want to pull the engine back out again, so all we did was pull the cylinder head off, and we got a battery drill and just drilled straight down.
Hand tap the threads
and put the bolts in. And we didn't actually show this part in the last segment, but we didn't drill them straight, and the bolts were so far out of whack, the head gasket wouldn't even slip on.
Because the studs were
so... Yeah, they weren't straight, it was just shit. Not going to lose the battle. we got a pole and set it up and actually bent the head studs back straight again. The head gasket slipped on, the cylinder head went back on, we torqued it down, and it was awesome.
It's been like this for about 5 months now.
5 months, and honestly, nearly 10,000 kilometers, and it hasn't missed a beat. The second time we pulled the engine apart, we actually did check the ring gaps, and the top ring gap was 28 thou, and the second ring gap was 26, which is way more than what I usually use. Usually it'd be around 22 for the second ring gap and 20 thou for the top ring gap. And it still doesn't blow.
I also haven't told you this, Matt, because it's pretty bad, but that oil filter is the one that we put on when we first assembled the engine, originally when we put the forged pistons in, and I haven't changed the oil since. I've just been topping it up every now and then.
How can you be proud of that?
I haven't changed the filter or the oil.
Oh God. Well, since then we obviously pulled the TD05 kit off, and we got the G30-770, made up a new manifold, external wastegate, got it all going. It's on mid sort of 20 pounds of boost now. We're at Keelands, it's going on the dyno, but we thought we had to let anyone that's new to the channel know the history of this Camp Dog engine. It's going to make 400 today, it's got to. It has to.
It probably won't, but it'll make a bit.
We're either going to run out of injector, which they're 750 cc's, or we're going to run out of fuel pump, which that's a 255.
The fuel system's going to be what lets us down, I think.
So yeah, we're going to keep going until this runs out of one of those two things or something happens.
It's going to be good. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
And we were thinking about putting a 35 on it at some point.
Well, they're actually the same size, physical size, aren't they?
Yeah, just different wheels. It's a brand new thing, so
Yeah, and it's probably just stained it.
there's no oil in the...
Yeah. I'd say that's what it is.
What do you reckon it's actually going to make first pull?
270.
How much power is it going to make?
First run, 282.
282. Wouldn't go anymore.
Stop revving.
Fuel out and the car's still staying really rich.
So the boost we're adding to it's not helping at all. Not doing nothing.
It's not getting in the motor.
No, you don't want to take that out.
Yeah, after 7,000, she's a big downhill fall. So the last time we had Nick's car on the dyno with the TD05, it made around 250 horsepower without the nitrous, and then made 300 horsepower with the nitrous. It didn't matter if we put the boost up anymore, it would not make any more power, and we thought it was out of turbo. Now that we've got the big G30-770 on there, even though it's at mid 20 odd pounds of boost, it still wouldn't go any higher than that sort of 250 mark. Now, the dyno has a vacuum gauge that reads at the fuel pressure regulator, which anybody that has a starlet manifold knows that vacuum nipple is right down near the start of the port where the cylinder head is. And the Microtech, which is the ECU, that gets its vacuum reference from the top of the intake plenum. Now the Microtech says that we're at 30 odd pounds of boost, but on the dyno, it's saying that we're only getting, 20 pounds of boost at the engine. So this is telling us we're getting a massive pressure drop from the top of the intake plenum down to where the actual port is. So now it's time that we need to make a new intake manifold. Anyone watching in the previous videos, I've got all the intake flanges already laser cut. I've got the 75mm throttle body. We got everything there ready to go. So Nick and I are now going to smash out a new intake manifold and we'll get it back on the dyno. The G3770 is more than capable of making 600 wheel horsepower on an engine. So for us to be at 250 horsepower now and can't make any more, there's a serious restriction there. But we'll sort that out and get Nick's car back on the dyno, and we'll also get the nitrous bottle filled as well. We need to get this Camp Dog engine making 400 horsepower. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like, and I'll see you guys next time. Catch up.